Well, welcome back to our photo beer and gear series with Action Camera. We are at Shish Broom Brewing. They have been really great in hosting us here today with Ben Davis, who we also know as Reno After Dark, one of our street photographers in Reno that has garnered quite a following. So
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
yeah, thanks for being on with us
Yeah.
today. So start off, what are you drinking?
I am not a beer guy. I'm a tequila guy or bourbon. I decided to go. They had Fortaleza behind the bar, which is a good tequila or one that I enjoy. So that's what I'm nursing during the show.
Yeah, you started out with a double, so we're starting off strong here.
Yeah. Thanks for calling that out. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Figured it might be a long show, and I don't want to go for a refill. So
I don't blame you. Yeah, I got to go back to work after this, so I have to keep it a little light today.
all right.
Um, I'm drinking a George Michael's Cream, which saying that out loud is really funny, but it is a really good beer.
All right. Is it one that is a specialty of theirs here?
Yes, it is. Yeah, on
I don't
tap.
know anything about beer, else I'd ask you about
You
it.
know, I don't know much about beer either. I just know what I like and don't like, and I do like this one. So
Beautiful. All right, good tequila, good beer. Let's go.
All right. So Reno After Dark, did that? I think when we've talked in the past, because we've known each other for quite a while,
Yep.
this started off as more of a personal project for you.
It did, yeah. Street photography is always, and I'm going to use the term street photography like loosely because I don't know that I fit the traditional definition of a street photographer all the time, and I know some people get kind of hung up on the traditional like terms and definitions. I think I'm a mix between street portrait, urban landscape, street photography.
Sure.
I've always loved it, and when we moved up here to Reno in 2010, I worked downtown and started taking my lunches to shoot photos. And so walking around downtown doing photography was always something that I don't know, I really enjoyed. It was something that really I felt kind of creative doing, and there wasn't any client or expectation. There wasn't any type of there wasn't rules. I could just kind of shoot what I wanted, and
Yeah.
if I never shared the photos, it didn't matter. And yeah, so I really enjoyed that, and then started working from home. Kind of lost touch with the kind of the street photography part of it, and then 2020 happened, and realized that so many things were happening downtown that were like unprecedented and crazy, and between like casinos not having locks for their doors, and
Yeah.
signage that had never been turned off before, and like all kinds of, I think I read somewhere like Harrah's hadn't locked its doors since like the JFK assassination. And
Yeah.
I just remember thinking like all of these really historical things are happening, and when we started to open back up after lockdown, I thought, man, people are going to want to get out because I want to get out. And there's going to be this opportunity to capture people having, I don't know what's the right way to put this, like an unprecedented level of fun or a historical level of fun, because they, when the casinos opened up and then the bars and restaurants were allowed to like fully open up, people were coming out of their lockdown hibernation or the statewide pause hibernation. And I wanted to be a part of that. And so I started going downtown and shooting, and it happened to be at night mostly because when I started doing it, it was kind of getting into the fall and winter of 2020, and it's dark a lot more. And I realized I absolutely loved it. It was the colors are vibrant, the people that are out are vibrant, the things that are happening. I think Reno is a very different place from day to night. And I went out during the day, and like people ask me if like going out at night is scary. I think going out during the day is scarier. Like it's a totally different place, and I fell in love with it. And that's kind of that was the genesis for Reno After Dark.
Yeah. So outside of Reno After Dark, I know you do a lot of professional work, a lot of freelance.
Yep.
What did photography start out for you with that kind of mindset, or was it something that you thought you would enjoy doing and then kind of branched off and turned into?
Yeah, so I started my creative career in the corporate world as a graphic designer, and worked as a graphic designer And I did a lot of things kind of within that genre. I've done corporate branding, marketing, instructional design, and training departments, and so I'd always kind of had been fortunate to have had a creative, like full-time job. And when I bought my first real digital camera in 2008, I think it was 2009, it was a Canon 30D, and I fell in love with it, and and it unlocked this passion, and that's kind of like the street photography kind of came from that. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, if I could make a living or a part of my living with this camera, that would sure be awesome. And
Yeah.
I wandered aimlessly in the photography industry and world for, I feel like a 3, 4, 5 years until because it's like when you first start out, I don't think you understand, or like you don't know your path. And so like there's weddings is kind of like, that's one obvious way you could go.
Sure.
And I was a second shooter for a couple people in town, and I mean, that was fine. And then, you dabble in families, and I quickly realized I don't have the patience for kids and family photography. And then
Sure.
none of that really like kind of worked for me. And, um, then there was a studio co-op that started here in town in 2014, and it kind of gave me the opportunity to be creative in a studio space, and
Sure.
quickly realized that like I really enjoyed product photography, and that kind of unlocked doors with working with businesses. And I really like doing commercial photography, helping businesses.
Okay.
And now Reno After Dark has a lot of overlap in that because obviously I'm out on social media and I'm creating content to put on social media. And so over the last couple of years, it's attracted a lot of attention from restaurants and bars and other like late night, what aligns kind of with the Reno After Dark brand. And so I've had a tremendous opportunity to work with a lot of local businesses and create a
Sure.
lot of like really cool um, visual content for them.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you? I mean, I feel like you kind of embody the persona of Reno After Dark. Wearing the hat, the shirt, and then of course your car with the branding on it. Is that part of your marketing decision, or is it like?
Yeah, I think that probably comes from like my years in corporate branding.
Hmm.
That I've never really had a business presence like in photography
Hmm.
with my own name, and it's always kind of been branded something else.
Sure.
Only because I don't know, it always felt easier to brand. And Reno After Dark, it came out of that, but it was also really easy because it was when I started, it was downtown Reno. It was me walking around. It was like, I mean, everything about it was Reno After Dark or Reno
Yeah.
at night. And so that was really easy. And I never intended for it to become like a business, and I never intended it to become what it is. Like for me, it was just going to be fun. It was just
Yeah.
like I think I even called it like the first year or two like an art project, right?
Hmm.
It was just, I don't know how long it's going to go. I don't
Right.
know. Yeah, but now that it's like taken on a life of its own, it like maybe was sort of accidental branding a little bit.
Sure.
But it's kind of fun because it's gotten so out there and everybody knows Reno After Dark. And so like we experienced it at the bar,
Yeah.
the bartender was like, "Oh, you're the guy,"
Yeah.
and so it's kind of fun to have people, have that sort of a conversation, with people.
Sure.
And plus I don't know, me as the person doesn't get in the way of it. Maybe before people get to know me,
Yeah.
it's just Reno, and it's just Reno After Dark, and it's the content rather than me as the person.
Yeah.
Which sort of flies in the face of where I think social media wants us to go,
Sure.
putting ourselves more out there.
No. Yeah. Yeah. It's been interesting watching you on this journey for the last few years because I remember you coming in and talking about getting into street photography, and
Yeah.
you bought a Fuji setup and you're so psyched about it, and then just slowly watching
Yeah.
you grow and and turn into this kind of entity in Reno has been really fascinating to watch and really cool. I mean, it's uh, inspiring in a lot of ways because there's a lot of people out there that I think who are street photographers, documentary photographers, but don't know how to branch into that world and make money off of it or to find opportunities,
Yeah.
outside of their art projects, right?
I had sort of like before rediscovering street photography had resigned myself that I would only be doing product photography, or that I would only be doing kind of talking head videos and, these kind of like more stale, like, commercial corporate type of content or work. And so I had gotten rid of anything that was like kind of a little bit easier to have on the street equipment wise. And uh, I think I remember coming in, it was like that 2020 timeframe, and I think I bought an XT4 from you, a Fujifilm XT4. Because I had used like XT3s for like a long time. After like I'd gotten rid of my Canon 1DX Mark II, I think it was, just because at the time the XT3 had really good video specs and
Sure. Yeah.
was starting to do more of that on the commercial side. And yeah, I remember buying that, and it was the street photography camera. And it's funny how I've gone through a lot of cameras, I've gone through a lot of lenses, I've gone through a lot of like, I kind of talk about Reno After Dark as being my like playground for photography, that because there isn't clients usually and there isn't a paid job, that I can try new things. I can rent a lens, or I can buy a new body and really put it through its paces out on the street.
Sure.
And so it's been fun, and I think my style has evolved because of it. Because I'm shooting 1,000 photos like every Saturday night, and I'm going out during the weekdays, and it's not quite as prolific, but just to exercise the creative muscles, like I'm shooting 1,500 photos a week, without any sort of expectation beyond what I have for myself or what I have artistically. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And I think also personally, when you spend that much time like with yourself, you kind of like, you do a lot of thinking, you do a lot of like, a lot of life goes away, that you're kind of focused on the shot, or you're focused on the photos that you want to make. And then as you're walking around, you're kind of like, I feel like you have this inner dialogue, and you have this, you're working through your personal stuff. And
Yeah.
So I think I heard on another podcast a street photographer talk about that, photography is just as much about like our journey as people as it is about an artistic medium. And
Sure.
I can wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, I know that when I was doing street photography, I would find myself in a similar mindset, and it was almost meditation for me.
Yeah.
It was my way of getting out of my own head and getting away from the world around me and just appreciating it, being in the moment.
Yep.
And I do miss that. I don't do it as much as I'd like to now, but
Well, the invitation's always open.
yeah. I'll take you up on it.
But yeah, I think for me too, it's like, it's a unique opportunity to get to know the people in your community. So talking about not so much self exploration or self journey, but you get to know your community, you get to know people in your community, you get to know like what kind of is happening. Like I always refer to downtown Reno as a little bit of an animal. Like some nights it's agitated, other nights it's calm, other nights it's sleeping, other nights it's like, it's, doing zoomies. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And people kind of look at me funny when I say that. And it's like, well, I know you don't spend enough time down at street level to kind of understand how that, because there's nights where you get out of the car and you throw your camera around your neck, and immediately someone's like angry with you, and I didn't even shoot a photo yet.
Right.
That's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
The feeling on the street is a little bit chaotic right now.
Tense today. Yeah.
So, and there's nights where it's just, it's like that. You go from one like abrasive or crazy experience to another, or it's nothing's happening. And it's like, wow, is this the same city that I was in 3 nights ago? And so, yeah, it's, and I don't know if that answered your original question. I don't remember what it was now, but
I think so. Yeah, it's funny. I always think about this when I go out with a camera and I shoot downtown or just in general. But I remember New Year's Eve. It was a few years back. I was walking around taking photos, and this woman walked up to me and said, "Are you Reno After Dark? Can you take my photo?" And I just thought at that moment that was where it kind of clicked, where you were you were making a name for yourself here. And I just think it's a really funny story. Like, saw someone with the camera and immediately was like, "Is that Reno After Dark?"
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for anybody else that wants to take a camera downtown, because I've heard that from multiple people.
Yeah, I think you need to get T-shirts that say "Not Reno After Dark." So on the note of social media,
Yeah.
it's I have my personal feelings about social media, but obviously it's a huge part of what you do, how you get your name out there, the outside of the creative perspective of it, but also in the business perspective. How do you and you've garnered quite a large following on especially Instagram.
Yep.
How has that been to navigate as it's grown larger and larger?
So many ways. There's so many parts to that question. I love and hate social media. Social media is like probably one of the best things that's ever happened to photography, and it's also probably one of the most destructive things that's ever happened to photography. Mm-hmm. I think that in so many ways, both in terms of my commercial like product work and my street work, I built businesses off of being able to use social media. So like social media has been very profitable for me. It's been very like productive for me. And I like, so that part I love. And I also love like I remember when I was like one of the first people to sign up for Instagram, and I got one of the, coveted, you don't have to hyphen or, make a long username. I got a very simple username when I first started. And, I loved it because at first all I did was take my iPhone out and did street photography. Way back, like I think it was an iPhone 4 or whatever the iPhone was. And like, that was fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just like, it was almost like no settings, just go out and capture it. And the first editing apps were coming out. And like, I remember thinking how great it was. And I networked with some other people doing the same thing in Reno, and we would like kind of organize lunchtime, like photo walks. And it was like, it was community. It was like, and I would never have found these like 3 or 4 other people that I did that with if it wasn't for the early days of Instagram.
Right.
And so it's like, from that perspective, like it's amazing. Mm-hmm. And if you use it right, brands can find you and you can find brands but the flip side of that is there's this tremendous, like, I think democratization of photography, which in some ways is good because everybody can now get into it. But in other ways, it's like this commoditization of content where you're feeding a beast, right? You're feeding that algorithm. And like, I have attention in my work because I know what the algorithm likes. Mm-hmm. I know what I like. And it's like, how do I keep both happy? Or how do I feed the algorithm without feeling like I'm not an artist anymore? Or that, cause like controversial stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Just for the sake of being controversial will get you likes and views.
Yes.
And occasionally I feel like those things line up. Like Saturday night, there was a protest or a small demonstration downtown, and I knew immediately that's a hot button political topic now that they were protesting or demonstrating against. And I knew that was going to do well as far as the algorithm goes, and so the thing I have to tell myself is like, how can I artistically capture this? Or how do I, and maybe it's different modes for different shots. Maybe sometimes I feel like I'm more of a documentarian, mm-hmm. And I'm just, capturing it. And but yeah, there's a tension. And I sometimes have to remind myself, like, artistically, what do I want? Like, what do I want to walk away with? Not just what Instagram is going to want me to walk away with, in terms of content. So like on a Saturday night, am I doing what I want to do, or am I just falling into the trap of doing what I think Instagram wants me to do?
Yeah. And that's what I was gonna get at, because I know from personal experience. I started out, I've been doing street photography, or had been for a long time. And, I went down the rabbit hole of posting on Instagram, and then started to get myself into this habit of thinking about the photos and in a sense of, is this going to get me more likes or comments? And that part was really frustrating for me, which is why I've kind of stepped back from that. It sounds like you contend with that.
Yeah. And I think even recently, like when TikTok got shut off, mm-hmm. It seemed like, maybe it was just my accounts, but it seemed like they kind of adjusted the algorithm, because before the TikTok shutdown, for like 3 months, photo posts were doing just as good as video posts, which, I was like, oh, this is amazing, right?
Yeah. Let's take advantage of this.
Because I don't mind shooting video, but it's not really my first love. I'll do it to because I think it adds context sometimes to some of my photos. And so that's kind of how I excuse the sometimes having to do street video. Mm-hmm. But when they reset that algorithm and it came back, and I got back on Instagram and started posting carousel posts or photo posts, they didn't do very well, and that was a big check for me because I was bummed.
Yeah.
Like I was upset that I wasn't getting the likes or I wasn't getting the views, and it's like, wow, okay, wait, why am I doing this? Like if it's allowing me to have enthusiasm for posting my work, or if it's dictating my enthusiasm, then so I would say like the last, like, what has that only been, like a month and a half or 6 weeks? Yeah, I think that's been a renewed debate for me, is that why am I shooting something? And if I'm shooting it for the gram, I just need to know, okay, I'm doing it. But I also need to save space or make room for the stuff that I want to do, and whether it gets likes or not, or even whether I post it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, getting to the gear
Yeah.
now, I
Yeah.
see a camera and a couple of lenses here.
Yep.
Tell us about what you use and why you use it.
Yeah. So very recently, made the switch in camera systems so I've been a Canon shooter for a long time, and made the move to Fuji, just because that was kind of their video features were they were in front of everybody, like back in 2017 and 18. So it kind of like was a no-brainer, since I needed some video specs for stuff I was working on. And then plus they were smaller, they tended to be smaller. And so that was kind of my go-to street stuff. And one of the fun things about Reno After Dark is that having used almost everybody's system in photos, it's not very often that people remark that things look different. And I rented a Nikon ZF last summer just for fun. I was like, I'll try it out. There's a lot of buzz about it, and it has a cool look. And it was the first time that I have gotten multiple comments and multiple DMs from people saying, what did you shoot this on? It looks awesome, or it looks different, or
Right.
what did you change?
Which is interesting, because on Instagram you have this little tiny
Yeah.
thumbnail if you're looking on your phone. So
Right. And so that instantly, like, I was caught off guard by that, because I've switched from, like, I think I've either rented or used probably a dozen cameras for Reno After Dark, just playing with things and looking at different focal lengths. And the ZF, it was the first time that's ever happened. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have to buy one. So I bought one. And I immediately knew, because of my prior experience, that I wanted like an 85 equivalent, 85 millimeter. And so one of the cool strengths of the Nikon system is that I sort of struggled with some of the other systems, because it's like they make an 85 that's either really expensive, or they make an 85 that's really cheap. And I need weather sealing because I'm out in the rain and the snow, and there isn't usually this middle area. And I know some of the brands are starting to infill that, but Nikon already had that. So the 1.8S was weather sealed, and 1.8, which if I shoot any shallower than that, it makes it really hard to focus on people moving quickly on the street. And so this lens is on this camera probably 75% of the time. And I love this combo. I love it too, because when I flip the screen around, which I know a lot of people hate that feature on the ZF, it looks sort of filmish. And so sometimes when people are like, let me see the back of the camera, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm shooting film. Well, now that secret's out, but because then that way I don't have people because it's wild. People don't have a lot of personal space boundaries when you're out on the street sometimes. And so it's I love this combo. I shoot a lot with that. The other lens I brought today was actually one that you and I kind of worked on. And I brought this one because it's a little bit of should we call it like a journey? It's a little bit of a creative journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Laowa 10 millimeter 2.8. And I bought it because the widest prime I think the Nikon makes right now is 20. And I didn't think that was going to be quite wide enough I really wanted to get in there and get the reflection shots. Everybody loves the rain and reflection shots. Oh, yeah. And so I got the 10, and I hated it. I got it, I took it out, and I hated it. It's a very unique lens, and the width of it means that it has a lot of character.
Yeah.
I don't want to say they're flaws now. At first I thought they were. And I think I texted you the weekend after I used it first, and I was like, I hate it.
Yeah.
I would like to sell it.
Yeah.
And I think I put it on Marketplace even, and I had it out there for a while, and we got another good rainstorm. Well, and I bought it, and then it just didn't rain. That was the other thing too. And then it finally rained. I think it was Christmas Eve. And And I ran downtown, threw that on the camera, and I figured it out. Like I think that there's shooting this wide, and maybe it's my inexperience with shooting that wide. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that are like, well, duh. I just realized you got to get really close. You got to lean into the flaws a little bit and the distortion. And I think some of my favorite photos I've ever shot doing Reno After Dark have now been on this 10 millimeter lens. And I think some of the most popular photos I've posted have been with this 10 millimeter lens. It just gives you such an amazing perspective that you can't generally get with a lot of other lenses.
Sure.
And plus it's got autofocus and it's weather sealed. And so, yeah, it's this has quickly become one of my favorite lenses.
Yeah.
Even though I hated it at first.
Right. Well, it took you a little while to I think, I mean, with all wide angle lenses like this, it takes some time to adjust to that.
Yeah.
They are difficult to shoot.
I will say, like, shooting 10, especially in the water or in the rain, like, you're almost having to set that camera in the puddle.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've had to like come up with some ways of making sure I don't accidentally do that because I'm so worried about getting it framed right.
Yeah.
There's been a few times I've almost dunked the ZF right in the puddle.
That's funny. I can imagine you out there just like
I'm
on the ground.
I'm sure I look ridiculous when I'm out there. Like,
I'm sure you do.
trying to line those shots up, but they're worth it.
This is what we do for photography.
That's right.
So in your street photography journey, you go out, and I'm sure you have some sort of expectation, maybe to some degree, that there might be some tense moments. Have there been any instances where you felt like, oh gosh, how did I get myself into this situation, and maybe felt unsafe?
So by and large, I have not had a lot of sketchy or like scary experiences downtown. So, because everybody's always expecting like the juicy stories. I mean, the one time where like I think I found myself involved like in an incident where like I probably should have like avoided or extricated myself sooner, but I was just kind of too wrapped up at being in the camera and in the moment was there was like a car get together downtown. It was outside the El Dorado, and that like, paid a park lot, and it started off small and I didn't think anything of it. And then suddenly I was, shooting photos, and I looked up from my camera, and there was probably like 4 times as many people there suddenly, and a lot of people. And they all like in unison started kind of moving towards the arch. And I kind of remember thinking like, wow, this is like, a lot of moving parts here happening like, together or in unison. And they brought the cars. There was like 2 or 3 featured cars in this group under the arch, and they started bouncing them. And one of them like was pretty high, like right around a large crowd, a little bit unpredictable. Like, and that was like my first thought was someone's gonna get hurt. And then the other thing is got pretty close to the arch a couple of times, and I'm like, oh, there's gonna be some property damage potentially. And of course, then I'm like, well, I have to stay for that. And I didn't realize like. It sort of like got wrapped up in the photography moment, didn't realize like kind of how agitated the group was getting. And at some point, I don't know if the cops got called or they showed up, and the first like responding officer or 2, I think, realized like how agitated the crowd was, and they sort of waited, and that got the crowd agitated also, or like encouraged them. And there was a moment where I'm right in the middle of like a potential like riot or like violent situation, and the 2 parties were kind of like escalating themselves. And so that was one moment where I thought, I'm right, I'm maybe too in the middle of this. And so that was one, and that's not a situation that most people are going to run into if they do street photography downtown. The other one was it was a rainy night, 2021, I think. It was like a Tuesday night. It was just me. I'd kind of made the mistake of not being as situationally aware on an emptier, quieter night. And I got approached by like 2 individuals, one from the front, one from the back. And I don't know what could have happened, but it seemed awfully weird and kind of coordinated. And fortunately for me, a Reno police cruiser came around the corner and threw on their lights, and those 2 individuals scattered and nothing came of it. So partly that was my fault. I was kind of like in the camera looking at stuff and not really paying attention to what was going on around me. So it's a little bit of a learning curve. Um, so yeah, I mean, those are my two. I did have a guy chase me for a couple of blocks because he didn't think I was allowed to take his photo. But I mean, that didn't end up being anything other than a little bit confrontational for a minute.
I've had a couple of those situations myself. So
Yeah. The other thing too is I think that's like one of the questions I get the most about street photography is like, I've learned that if you approach something with confidence or even with humor, it goes a long way in keeping people from getting agitated.
yeah.
This one was, I kind of knew based on the way the guy looked that he was going to like probably have an issue with it. He kind of seemed like he was, drugs may have been his thing.
Yeah.
And I shot the photo and I kind of like turned and walked as quickly as I could instead of just like, I think being confident in the moment. And so I found like, if I laugh off a photo or if I like, say thank you to people or like, I just act like, well, this is how it is. Like the more confidence you can bring, I think the easier that street photography gets. And obviously that's me doing this for, every week, a couple times a week for 4+ years.
Yeah. So we have something in the works for you teaching at Action Camera.
Yeah.
We haven't come up with a date quite yet.
Yep.
But I'm excited to have you in the store, and I'm sure other people are excited to take a class. What did touch on what you wanted to convey in the class? And
we haven't completely solidified all the details, but there's always been a lot of interest in a street photography class from me, or I get a lot of interest from that, and I think you guys do too. I get a lot of interest about a low light street photography or a nighttime street photography workshop or class. And I get inquiries for sort of low light events and that sort of thing. So I think all those things we can kind of, we've had conversations about putting together in a workshop or workshops. And so I'm excited to be able to work together with you guys to offer that.
so I've noticed. I mean, I guess not too recently, but there's been a lot of incorporation of first responders. And I know that you also do ride-alongs with first responders. How did you find yourself getting into that?
Kind of by accident. Well, I'll say first by accident and like purposely. So on the one hand, first responders are everywhere downtown. Downtown is a very busy corridor for them. Station 1 and Station 4, which are the fire stations down there, they're busy with the casinos and the events and those sorts of things. And so the fire department is out all the time. I think I read somewhere that they're like the 5th busiest firehouse in the country in terms of calls. And so they're a fixture down there, right? So for me to not ever take their photo, I think would be a deliberate choice on my part to exclude them because they are a part. Now, in the beginning, when they didn't know who I was, wasn't exactly like a. I don't know if they were like thrilled about it or if they were like thought I might be throwing them into like a bad light. And same thing with Remza and the same thing with Reno Police. That at first, I think I got a lot of like suspicious looks and people weren't like thrilled that I was shooting their photo while they were working. But all 3 of those entities are down there all the time, whether it's fire, rescue, Remza or police. And when people ask me why do I take photos of them, well, I feel like I'd be ignoring a large part of what happens down there if I didn't take a photo of them.
Yeah.
Now, after 4 years of doing this, I forged a lot of like good relationships with individual officers, with Remza as an organization, with fire as an organization, with the police as an organization. And it's afforded me the ability to kind of see some behind the scenes with them. And I've been fortunate to be able to like capture some content that maybe most people don't get to get. And I am, I think, first and foremost, like a storyteller, right? That sounds like so cliche to say. I just feel like everybody says that, but like the thing that gets me so excited about going downtown is like anybody can take a photo of like the El Dorado. Anybody can shoot a photo of the Cal Neva, but to incorporate like people's stories or to capture them in their like environment, whether it's having fun, being stressed out to a certain degree, or like whatever is happening down there, that to me is like what I get really excited about, or what really like sort of energizes me.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about stories and we're talking about events and things that are happening, like it's always happening with those guys. Like
Yeah.
if it's fires out there, it's because there's a fire or there is a medical call. With Remza, it's usually, you know, it's going to be a medical call. And I try to be sensitive to what's going on with the people that they're helping. But like that is part of the, if downtown is a story, that's part of the, that's a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you know, and has, because of relationships being forged, has there been a little bit more maybe of a soft spot for them than I had before? I mean, yeah. But also in terms of color and light and people, I mean, they've got it going. I mean, reds, blues, you know, you know, so it's hard not to want to step in and capture them while they're doing their thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, final thoughts. I always like to ask people this question: if someone asks you, comes up to, and says, "I want to get into photography," what advice would you give them?
Just start shooting, and shoot a lot.
Yeah.
And know that like it. I mean, again, this like sounds so cliche. Like you'll hate your first 1,000, 10,000 frames. And if you don't, you're probably not getting the right feedback, or you're not like, for me, it's just do it. Just get out and do it. Like if you're thinking about doing street photography, just go do it. If you're thinking about wanting to get into photography, like just do it. Like it's that 10,000 hours thing, right? That you have to put in the time. And I look back at my early Reno After Dark stuff. I don't like it. I think it's terrible. I have a soft spot for it because I'm sentimental about the first, like, you know, few times I went out and did it. But yeah, just do it. Don't get hung up on gear, especially with low light. Like I think everybody thinks they need a 1.2 lens, and they need to spend an unbelievable amount of money on the newest sensors, and you don't. I mean, I shot most of Reno After Dark on a crop sensor with, you know, f2 or 2.8 glass, and nobody ever said anything. Nobody said the photos were garbage, or the grain was too much, or the noise was too much. And so I think go with what you can afford, and then just passionately just shoot.
Yep.
Wear that shutter out.
Great advice. Well, thanks for joining us today, Ben.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Looking forward to it.
All right.